Welcome back for another Sheriff of Studying video. Today, we're talking about the OBGYN ERAS divorce, winners and losers edition. You know, if you go back 30 years ago, the process of applying to residency programs was very different. It was cumbersome and clunky. It was dependent on paper applications and snail mail, and programs and applicants alike, they wanted something better. And then the Association of American Medical Colleges, the AAMC, they came to the rescue. They developed a product called ERAS, the Electronic Residency Application Service. And when you had ERAS, now all of a sudden, all you needed to do was upload all your application documents onto a floppy disk, drop it off at your dean's office, and then use your dial-up modem and just sit and wait for interview offers to pop up in your AOL email account. ERAS changed everything for residency applicants and residency programs. It was a seismic change for the whole residency selection process. And, to be sure that things went well, the AAMC didn't roll it out to all programs simultaneously. Instead, what they did is they created a partnership with OBGYN program directors to pilot this new product. And so began a 25-year relationship between OBGYN residency programs and ERAS. From the outside, it had the look of a marriage that would last. But yesterday, OBGYN program directors announced that they wanted a divorce. Here's the press release from the APGO website. It says, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists is pleased to announce a specialty-wide initiative to design and implement an OBGYN residency application starting in the 2024-2025 residency application cycle. It goes on to say this new application will be user-friendly and efficient, less expensive for applicants, and will directly decrease the burdens faced by program directors, program managers, and applicants alike. Now, this is big news. It's big news that may have significant downstream effects for applicants, programs, and the residency selection system as a whole. So you know what that means. Yeah, that's right. It's time to break it down, winners and losers style. Our first loser, the AAMC. ERAS didn't just dramatically change residency selection, it dramatically changed the finances of the AAMC. Fueled by application fever, ERAS rapidly became the AAMC's cash cow, and these days it generates more revenue than the organization takes in from the MCAT, AMCAS, and membership dues combined. Last year, for the fiscal year ending in 2022, the Electronic Residency Application Service generated $120 million in revenue for the AAMC. Now, OBGYN is a relatively small specialty, but losing their applicants is not going to be painless. How much is it going to hurt? Well, last year there were 2,613 OBGYN applicants, and they submitted an average of 63 to 83 applications apiece, depending on their educational background. So if we assume the same number of applicants and applications for the 2024-2025 application cycle, it's going to cost the AAMC $3.3 million. Now that's a nice chunk of change, but it's still just 2.8% of ERAS revenue. In the wake of the OBGYN announcement, the AAMC issued a press release of their own, noting their surprise and dismay about this decision. But they're really going to be dismayed if other specialties choose to jump ship. Next up, a winner, Liaison International. ERAS's loss is Liaison's gain. Unlike the tax-exempt AAMC, Liaison International is a for-profit company whose early growth was fueled by private equity investment by Warburg, Pincus, and others. Their centralized application services platform has a slick user interface and actually is already used by many colleges and universities. Still, making a serious move into the lucrative market of graduate medical education is still a huge play. Next up, a loser, Thalamus. Not long ago, Thalamus was a disruptive innovator that seemed best poised to challenge ERAS. But in the span of a couple of years, Thalamus has gone from raising capital to expand their suite of software to announcing a strategic partnership with the AAMC. And when I heard this news back in April, it was easy for me to understand why Thalamus would want this partnership. They've worked very hard to carve out market share for their interview scheduling platform and programs in anesthesiology and pediatrics and some other specialties. But with this collaboration with the AAMC, they were going to get to put their product in front of all the residency programs that use ERAS because the AAMC was going to pay them handsomely to include it for free to programs. But what was a little bit harder for me to figure was why the AAMC wanted to collaborate with Thalamus. And I think the fact that the AAMC, which controls 98 or 99% of residency applications, the fact that they felt threatened by a plucky upstart that had better tech, it shows how outdated their infrastructure is. My guess is that they feared Thalamus's growth, and they worried that they may evolve into a direct competitor, and they envied their software development and their data harvesting capabilities. If you can't beat them. Next, a winner, program directors. I don't know why exactly OBGYN leaders decided to cut ties with ERAS right now, but I could hazard a pretty good guess. Program directors in all specialties are suffocating under the weight of application fever, and from time to time, they've asked the AMC to help them by sharing data or by making changes to the ERAS application or ERAS policy. And to be fair, the AMC has made more changes to the ERAS application in the past 2 years than they did in the previous 20, and I think the updates to this year's application are mostly for the better. But the changes that have been made have occurred only after a lot of work from programs. It's easy to imagine OBGYN program directors getting fed up with the AMC's data hoarding and glacial pace of innovation and seeking out a partner that was more interested in innovation and improvement. If you read the AMC's response to the OBGYN announcement, their press release, which I'll link to in the show notes, it includes a lot of sort of emotional overtone that's often missing from this type of corporate communication. It talks about their surprise and dismay and their concern and how they have many questions and few answers. It reads like a jilted lover who was too distracted and thick to hear their spouse saying that they were fed up and they were going to leave them. And then they finally did. Switching to a new application platform is a lot of work. And so, to whatever extent this was discussed before the announcement was made, I'll bet the AMC officials thought that no one would actually follow through on it. Nobody was actually going to quit using their service. But now, a major specialty has done just that. And so, threats from other specialties and other program directors to do the same are going to carry a lot more weight. Program directors that want changes in ERAS, they're going to have a lot easier time getting them made now than they would have if OBGYN had stayed put. Next up, PUSH, the NRMP. Let me be clear, OBGYN's decision to receive applications using a different system, it does not impact their intent to use the NRMP match. Still, I gotta think that the NRMP took notice of this whole situation. Because just like the AAMC's ERAS, the NRMP's R3 system, it's not irreplaceable. It wouldn't be that hard for a specialty to leave the NRMP and decide to run their own match. I mean, heck, urology and ophthalmology already do. And the NRMP and the OBGYN program directors have butted heads a little bit over the past few years over things like, for instance, the possibility of making an early result acceptance program two-stage match. So for now, OBGYN's decision means absolutely nothing for the NRMP, other than perhaps providing a reminder that even a near monopoly can't protect an organization that isn't responsive to its stakeholders. Next, loser, the deans. To ensure that students receive appropriate consideration at the residency programs to which they apply, deans have to adhere to a strict calendar to submit institutional documents. That's not going to change, but now school officials are going to have to manage uploading transcripts and MSPEs in a whole new system. Next, PUSH, 2024-2025 OBGYN applicants. Say what you will about ERAS, and if you say it's clunky, cumbersome, and often unreliable, you'd be right. But it's the devil we know. Now OBGYN applicants are going to have to contend with a new system. And although Liaison International is no Johnny-come-lately to applications in general, it's also a little bit hard for me to imagine that the maiden voyage with OBGYN applicants is going to go off without a hitch. Now, spending a few months ironing out glitches after you release a new software product, that may be par for the course for software engineers. But for residency applicants, the 6 months of the residency application season are a high-stakes one-off with career-altering implications. Residency Cast promises that they'll have lower fees and a better user experience than ERAS, so if they can steer clear of the technical issues, then OBGYN applicants may eventually get moved into the winners column. Except for maybe one group, loser, dual applicants. Because even if Residency Cast is a better product, around a third of MD and DO OBGYN applicants apply to and rank another specialty, and those folks are still going to be forced to slog through ERAS. Our next loser, the OBGYN Unmatched. There's nothing good about going unmatched. But at least if you go unmatched in a specialty that's already using ERAS, your application is more or less ready to go if you want to try your luck in the SOAP. And remember, OBGYN is a competitive specialty. There are not going to be many unfilled OBGYN positions. Last year, there were four. And last year, 13% of MD seniors who wanted to match an OBGYN went unmatched. 30% of DO seniors went unmatched. 60% of US citizen IMGs and 73% of non-citizen IMGs who wanted to match an OBGYN went unmatched. So there's a good number of unmatched OBGYN applicants. And if these folks don't plan ahead or dual apply, then there's going to be a lot of disappointed applicants who have to scramble around to complete their application in a whole new system so that then they can fight for a leftover position in a different specialty. Finally, a winner, residency selection. Here, I think it's important that we all recognize that residency program directors, they don't set their standards and review applicants in a vacuum. The software that they use and the information that it collects and the way that it chooses to present that information, it helps in ways that are subtle and overt set their priorities. Consider, for sake of example, USMLE scores. If you go into ERAS and you want to review an applicant's USMLE transcript, you can. You click and there's a PDF that opens in front of you. You can see the scores right there. And if that were the only way that test scores were accessible to program directors, let me tell you something. USMLE scores would not have nearly the primacy in residency selection that they do. But of course, in addition to the PDF of the transcript, ERAS includes the actual score in a different data field, and it turns that piece of data into a filterable numeric variable. The very way that ERAS collects information provides a subtle comment on how programs should use and interpret it. The same is true for how the system is configured. So if you didn't want residency programs to screen applicants in a certain way, say by screening out applicants from DO schools or whose year of graduation was more than a certain number of years in the past, well, then a software program should not turn those data points into easily filterable variables. If you acknowledge that different programs have different missions, then maybe a software program should allow easy customizability of the user interface rather than requiring programs to come up with complicated workarounds. Back in the old days, actually, the AAMC surveyed programs to see what information should be included in the original ERAS application. But that information and the way it's been presented has been largely static for the past 15 years. My honest hope is that OBGYN programs and residency casts are going to seize this fresh start and this superior platform to develop a more thoughtful, more easily customizable system that's going to enable applicants to authentically present themselves and their accomplishments and allow them to be fairly reviewed and evaluated. And for now, that's all I've got. Thanks for listening.